Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Good afternoon, my spiritist Kardec Radio friends. This is John DeRosa. Yes, I've shaved. Coming to you once again at 4 o'clock with a study of one chapter from the book, The Way, the Truth, and the Life, written by Emmanuel and the mediumship of Francisco Quintito Xavier. Today's message or chapter is number 95, entitled The Unknown Friend. We will read the New Testament quote from Luke that Emmanuel used for further writing here in the chapter that he wrote, and then we'll read the message, then come back and go over a few things, a few highlights, things that stuck out to, at least were given to me as thoughts. And we're going to be using again the book Good News to show how they're so very linked together, what Emmanuel has written and what is in the Good News book given to us by Humberto de Campos. And then after that, we will say a closing prayer and then say goodbye. So let's get to the message, number 95, The Unknown Friend. The New Testament quote is from Luke chapter 24, verse 16. But it was as if their eyes were shut so that they could not recognize him. And then Emmanuel has written, on their way to Emmaus is the proper way to pronounce it, Emmaus. On the way to Emmaus, the downcast followers were discussing the terrible events of Calvary. They were tormented with grief. Doubt had pierced their souls, leaving them discouraged and faithless. However, an unknown man joined them on the road. He looked like a poor pilgrim. Without identifying himself, he explained the truths of the scriptures and praised the cross and the suffering. Both the disciples had allowed themselves to get tangled in a web of ungrateful contradictions, but they now felt a pleasant well-being as they listened to his consoling augmentation. And augmentation is defined as the action or the process of reasoning systematically in support of an idea or a action or theory. And that's what Christ did with them. It was only at the end of the journey, when they felt rejuvenated in the warm environment of the inn, that they realized that the unknown man was the master. There are still disciples on the symbolic road to Emmaus every day. They know the gospel, but are shocked by the sacrifices required for ongoing spiritual illumination. They do not understand the divine ambient of the cross, but search instead for distant mental landscapes. Nonetheless, there is always an unknown person walking beside those who waver and flee. He or she has the appearance of a misunderstood pilgrim, an unexpected companion, a benevolent old man or woman, or even a timid child. His or her voice is different than that of others. His or her explanations are firmer and his or her appeals are gentler. Those who partake of the banquet of the cross for just one moment will never forget it. They may leave for the world outside and linger on dark pathways. Nevertheless, a time will come when Jesus unexpectedly comes looking for those wayward travelers. He will support them until they are safe and free in the inn of faith. Okay, Emmanuel has once again given us this lovely message, and what we'll do is go back, and it's interesting in the beginning of this message that the two disciples were tortured with grief and had doubt in their souls, and leaving them discouraged and faithless. And it wasn't too long ago that Christ gave them the definition of faith. And when we go back to the Good News book, chapter 28, entitled The Good Thief, which is published in the Spiritist magazine, issue 51, Jesus says to the apostles, faith belongs to those who work and trust. Work and trust is the key. And to have it in one's heart is to always be ready for God, irrespective of a healthy or sick body. The successes or misfortunes of the material life have no meaning. So here the apostles have been given this wonderful explanation, and then we go on through this message, and we see where Christ comes meets them on the road and explains the truth of the scriptures, and talks about the demonstration of love and sacrifice that Christ had made on the cross. And as Emmanuel writes, the two disciples had gotten entangled in a web of ungrateful contradictions, and now they felt so much better after Christ once again, as a stranger, explains to them what it is about faith, and the fact that Christ came to demonstrate what is needed for each one of us to progress, to have this unyielding faith, this one that we're always ready to serve and to trust. Later on here in the chapter, they realize, of course, that it is the Master. And then Emmanuel writes about disciples that are still on this symbolic road. And this is the road that unfortunately too many people take. They take what may be referred to as the wide road and not the narrow road. And why do they take the wide road as opposed to the narrow road? And that's because, as he says here, they know about the gospel, but they are shocked by the sacrifices that are required for an ongoing spiritual illumination. And this again reverts back to the idea of work and trust in God, because God will give us these particular situations, put us in these particular situations, and those could be, as later on in that Good News chapter, he talks about, aside from knowing God's will from his laws and his prophets through the wise advice and the natural inclination to the good, God's will also manifests itself in every moment of our lives. And that is really key. Every moment of our lives. And this is, again, very, very difficult for most of us to wrap our heads around, that God is involved with us at all times. And then he goes on, Christ goes on to say, it is bittersweet. It either grants us sweetness or takes it away from us in order for each of us to reap the most luminous experience along the thorniest path. To have faith, therefore, is to be determined and following its sacred roadmap, even in the face of the small sinuations on the road we must travel. And sinuations, the definition of that is a winding or bending in and out. And of course, it's a great way of looking at what happens to us on this thorny road, or this narrow road. So again, we go back to what Emmanuel has written, and again, the people do not understand the divine ambient of the cross, but they search instead in other places, in some kind of distant landscapes, referring, again, getting off of the narrow road and getting on the wide road. And what Emmanuel reassures us is that there will be a he or she that appears along this road to basically guide us back to where we should be. And that person appears and will have a particular quality about how they approach us, that they have this firmness within as far as the logic is concerned. But of course, the appeals are gentle. It's not a high pressure type of interaction. And those that, of course, as he says here, partake of the banquet of the cross for just one moment will never forget it. And that is to truly understand that God continually gives us these chances, and to understand what he did for us on the cross, he's asking us to do not what he did. But of course, there were some martyrs during his time that were killed, were murdered, like he was, crucified, eaten. And we've gotten to the point where we're asked, what are we asked to do? We're asked to help and serve people, to disrupt our day sometimes, to be able to help that neighbor, that friend, or that family member. This is what we must understand, and we must bring into our way of living, is this continual desire to, as we talk about in Spiritism, to seek and feel the good, to visualize the good, to mold the good in every part of our day and throughout our lives. There will be that person that appears to us at some time, and it gets back to the end here, where he said, nevertheless, a time will come when Jesus unexpectedly comes looking for us. And of course, Jesus is wrapped in that particular person that affects us. And he will support them until they are safe and free in the inn of faith. And when your faith blossoms through service and trust in God, and the trust in God is what the service does for us, is it builds this trust in God, because you're able to do these things to help people. And that's the key, to do the good. I would like now to say a small prayer, and so let us close our eyes and take a breath in, Hold and then release. Dear Mother, Father God, Lord Jesus, Mother Mary, and the spirits that be surrounding us today, we are so grateful for having the opportunity to present the way, the truth, and the life. It's just a wonderful book loaded with extremely excellent examples for all of us to continually remind us of how we should live our lives. Let us also be grateful for God's infinite love and mercy and healing energy, and ask that that healing energy and love be broadcast to our families, our friends, our neighbors, to be spread throughout our city, our state, and of course across the U.S., and to also encompass the whole world. There's so many people, especially those suffering now from the COVID-19 virus, and the people that take care of those people, the people that work in those hospital facilities, the people at home that are taking care of ones that can't get to a hospital. We also ask for that love and healing energy to be shared with people in mental institutions, people imprisoned, refugees. So many people that are looking to get to asylum here in this country. And of course, we cannot forget our ruling party, the Senate, and the representatives in Congress, and of course our White House, to carry forward with the way that they're handling things now, to sharing the vaccines with part of the world, to open up our society to all, to treat people, to value people the way they need to be valued in order to bring us into more concert with the love that Jesus showed to us when he was here. Once again, we are so appreciative of your guidance and protection. And we ask for permission to end this prayer, and so be it. As a little further today, this little story is about one of my cousins who reads the obituary pages, and 2 days ago he called me, and the reason he called me has been reading the obituary page, and a friend of mine from college had passed away, and he wanted to let me know because he had a connection with the family through one of his friends that had married one of the daughters, and it was a sister of my friend. So I went to the service today before, and it was a mass at a Catholic church, and the priest that was saying the sermon, guess what book he mentioned? The Way, the Truth, and the Life, and used that statement about we must go through Jesus in order to get to God. And of course, paraphrasing the New Testament. But I thought it was interesting how the spirits are always working in our life, be it synchronicity, the spirit roles, the universe. It's certainly no coincidence that that happened. I hardly knew anybody there at the funeral because I haven't been the memorial service. I hadn't been in touch with him in quite a while, a number of years. But it was a beautiful little service, and we left and came back home. I wanted to encourage all to always take advantage of Kardec Radio. It's there for us 24 hours, 7 days a week. We have so much material. Sometimes it'll make it difficult for you to select, but of course, just listening to Kardec Radio is a good way to get started. And then you can go in and look at some of the podcasts that are available. Once again, we are so thankful and grateful for having the opportunity to present the way, the truth, and the life. And we will sign off with a sign of love and look forward to seeing you next week. And take care. Oh, I want to say hello to Vanessa. Thank you for joining me today. And Andrea Rodriguez. Oh, and Jaziel. You've been here before, my dear. Take care and God bless.